The shadows of terror are deeper than any alley in Renaissance Italy. Beneath the unyielding light of the Astronomicon, where even the stars burn with imperial judgment, a single man moves unseen, not by witchcraft, nor by machine, but by mastery of silence. His name is Ezio Auditore da Firenze, though none dare speak it aloud. In this reality, he is not a noble son or a killer of tyrants. He is something else entirely, a phantom within the Inquisition's most secret chambers. He has traded his hidden blade for a sanctified variant of it, an artifact forged beneath the seal of the Ordo Hereticus, etched with holy scripts, to pierce both flesh and faith. His creed remains unchanged. Nothing is true. Everything is permitted, but now those words echo through cathedrals of iron and prayer, whispered among the terrified adepts who suspect heresy where there is only justice cloaked in shadow, in this universe. Ezio is not an intruder. He is a paradox, a relic of freedom within an empire built on obedience. As he walks through the Manufactorum ruins and the incense-choked halls of the Ecclesiarchy, every movement he makes defies the Imperium's order. He kills not for rebellion, but for balance, striking down corruption festering in the very heart of those sworn to purge it. And yet, as rumors begin to spread through the ranks of the Inquisition, whispers of a ghost assassin guided by neither emperor nor demon. One question burns across the data slates of the Ordos: is he serving humanity, or betraying it? For in a galaxy where faith is law, one heretic can doom a world, but one assassin might just save it. If the idea of Ezio Auditore stalking through the shadowed corridors of the Inquisition sends a chill down your spine, make sure you've subscribed and rung the Vox bell below. Every like, every share, fuels the next descent into the dark corners of the Imperium, where legends from other worlds are reborn beneath the Emperor's gaze. Stay with us until the end, because what you'll discover about Ezio's role in the 41st millennium may redefine the very meaning of loyalty and sin. The smog of terror clings to my lungs like sin, heavy, metallic, unrepentant. The city beneath the Golden Throne breathes in fumes and exhales despair. Every step I take through its endless Manufactorum streets echoes with the murmurs of the forgotten, the prayers of the damned. Here, beneath the shadow of the Emperor's light, faith has become a currency, traded and twisted until it no longer resembles belief at all. The lumen strips flicker against the soot-stained walls, throwing ghostly light across my hood. To them, I am a whisper, a shadow, the ghost of terror. They think me myth, a blade that moves through confession and corruption alike. But I am real enough when the blood spills. My hidden blade catches a reflection of a broken Aquila painted above a doorway, its wings clipped, its sigil cracked. Once, that symbol meant something to me. Now it's a relic, a reminder of a world long turned to ash. I stalk through the ruins of a Manufactorum, its gears still grinding faintly, powered by servitors who no longer remember why they toil. Their hollow eyes follow me, their metallic tongues muttering prayers to machines that have forgotten mercy. In the corner of the cathedral's husk, the preacher waits. His robes are soaked in oil and sin, his voice booming through a cracked vox. He preaches of salvation through suffering, of the Emperor's will carved in flesh and flame. The congregation kneels, trembling not in awe but in fear. They do not see the blood pooling beneath his pulpit. They do not see the heretic hidden behind faith, but I do. I see the truth written in every twitch of his lips, every glimmer of madness in his eyes. I move with the silence of old vows, my breath steady, my heart unflinching. When my blade finds him, it is not vengeance. It is ceremony. The strike is clean, the moment brief. He gasps a prayer as the metal pierces his throat, a sound swallowed by the hum of ancient machinery. His body slumps against the pulpit, the words of his sermon dissolving into static. The people scatter, some crying, others too broken to care. In the stillness that follows, I whisper an old phrase, not of the creed, but of remembrance. Nothing is true. My voice dies before I finish. The rest feels foreign now. As I pull my blade free, a faint mechanical hiss cuts through the air. A servitor, half buried in debris, its body twitching in spasms, drags itself toward me. Its vox crackle sputters words I can barely make out. Target. Inquisitor. Audit. Alive. Then silence. Its lens dims, its metal skull collapsing into stillness. For a long moment, I stare at the corpse of machine and man fused together, and wonder if the Emperor's will has begun to mock me. An Inquisitor. The word gnaws at me. In the Imperium, the Inquisition stands above all, judge, jury, executioner, of the heretic, the mutant, the xen. To raise my blade against one is to challenge the Imperium itself. But the servitor's message wasn't random static, it was coded, deliberate. Someone wanted me to hear it. Someone who knows what I am. I leave the temple behind, its incense mingling with the stench of burned promethium. The streets outside roar with the sound of labor engines, of souls, too numb to scream. In the distance, the spires of the administratum loom like tombstones piercing the smog. I walk among pilgrims and scavengers alike. Ghosts moving through ghosts, and I feel the weight of unseen eyes upon me. Rumors travel fast here. The ghost of terror kills again. The ghost hunts priests. The ghost defies faith itself. But this time, something feels different. The air tastes heavier. The silence between the screams feels intentional, as if the city itself is holding its breath. I find myself drawn to the reflection in a pool of oil, my own face, aged, scarred, and unrecognizable. Not the assassin I once was. Not the man who walked the rooftops of Florence beneath a free sky. No. That man died centuries ago. What remains is something the Imperium reforged in its own image. A tool. A ghost. A weapon wrapped in the corpse of an ideal. And now, the Inquisition stirs. Whether they seek to use me or destroy me, I cannot yet tell. But if they come, they will find that even in the heart of terror, ghosts do not bow easily. The servitor's last words still hum faintly in my mind, distorted by static but clear enough to chill the blood. Ezio, summoned to judgment. I look up toward the distant, golden spires of the imperial palace, and for the first time in centuries, I feel something close to fear. The underbelly of terror breathes like a wounded beast. Each exhale a plume of steam, each tremor a pulse of buried machinery. Down here, beneath the marble cathedrals and the golden spires, the true heart of the Imperium rots in silence. The tunnels are narrow veins of rust and oil, slick with condensation that tastes of iron when it drips from the pipes above. The further I descend, the less I hear of prayer. Only the hum of the machine god remains, whispered through 1,000 vox grills by servitors whose flesh has forgotten its name. I move among them like a shadow that shouldn't exist, an echo from a different age. 1. The Imperium has long buried. My destination lies in the Ministerum's lower archives, where parchment fuses with circuitry and faith is encrypted line by line. The adepts who tend this place have forgotten the difference between scripture and schematics. Their prayers are typed, their hymns stored on cogitator drives sealed in wax and blood. I watch from the rafters as a procession of robed figures passes below, their faces hidden behind augmetic masks, each one humming the same fractured hymn. The sound reverberates in my skull, mechanical yet devout. There is beauty in its horror. I slip between corridors lined with devots, each one guarded by purity seals and the scent of incense thick enough to choke the uninitiated. Dust gathers on sacred texts etched into metal plates, histories of heresy, purges catalogued in the Emperor's name. I find the record I seek, not through chance, but through instinct. My blade was always guided by more than skill, perhaps faith, perhaps guilt. The file is marked by an inquisitorial sigil, scorched half away, as if someone tried to erase it and failed. The data within flickers like a dying star. I see names, worlds, executions ordered without cause, labeled necessary silence. A purge within the Inquisition itself. No heretics, no xenos, no mutants. Only silence. That is the true heresy, the quiet that follows obedience. I remember my old creed then, not as a vow, but as a whisper in the back of my mind. Nothing is true. Everything is permitted. It feels dangerous to even think it here, on the throne world. Truth, on terror, is not a virtue. It is a crime. The Emperor's light burns too brightly for honesty to survive beneath it. A soft metallic click breaks my thought. I freeze. Somewhere in the dark, something mechanical shifts its gaze. My hand finds the hilt of my blade, hidden beneath my robes. Then I see them, the silhouettes of the Adeptus Custodes, glinting gold even in the dim glow of lumen strips high above. Guardians of the throne itself, they do not speak. They do not need to. Their presence alone means my trespass is known. I move again, slower now, every motion measured. My breath shallow. The air down here is dense with incense and oil. Each inhalation like swallowing ash. I pass beneath a hanging relic, the broken half of an imperial aquila, preserved in stasis. One wing whole, the other corroded. A symbol to fitting. A faint whir approaches. Then I see it. A servo skull drifting through the gloom, its optics glowing with cold intelligence. It bears the inquisitorial seal, polished, untouched by time. It turns toward me with a predatory calm, Vox unit crackling to life. Ezio. Designation: unauthorized presence in restricted sanctum. Awaiting sanction. The voice is calm. To calm. The kind of calm that comes before the storm. I step backward, melting into the shadow of a rusted column. My mind races. I've evaded assassins, emperors, and Templars, but the Inquisition is something else entirely. They do not hunt bodies. They hunt intent. They see thought as sin. The skull hovers closer, its lens tightening on my face. For a heartbeat, I glimpse myself reflected in its glass eye, a relic staring at another relic. Then the reflection shifts. A second skull glides into view. Then a third. Their optics link in perfect synchrony, forming a silent triangle of judgment. For a brief moment, the hum of the archives fades. I can hear my own heartbeat. I know then, the hunt has turned. I am no longer the shadow. I am the quarry. The servo skulls emit a single tone, sharp as a blade, Somewhere in the darkness above, footsteps echo heavy, disciplined, unhurried. The Custodes are descending. I press my palm to the cold metal wall beside me, feeling the thrum of distant machinery through it. For the first time since I came to Terra, I feel the faint tremor of doubt. Perhaps the creed was right all along. Nothing is true, not even the faith I thought I still carried. The air grows colder. The light tightens. And as the servo skulls circle closer, their crimson optics burning like miniature suns, I realize the Emperor's city has no need for ghosts. It only makes more of them. The tunnels narrowed until they felt more like a throat than a passage swallowing sound. Swallowing light. I could hear the hum of dormant reactors beneath the stone, their ancient rhythm pulsing like a dying heart. The air down here was colder, thinner. Every breath tasted of rust and ozone, every step stirred up dust older than memory. The further I went, the more the world above the cathedrals, the Custodes, the endless prayers became a dream I'd once believed in. Down here, only truth remained, stripped of its holy mask. When I finally reached the vault, it did not greet me as a sanctum. It felt like a tomb. The massive blast door loomed before me, marked with faded purity seals and the sigil of the Inquisition. A crimson eye carved through layers of dust. I placed my palm against it, and it shuddered beneath my touch, gears groaning awake as though it had been waiting. The door split open with a hiss, exhaling the stench of age and Promethean decay. Inside, the chamber stretched vast and circular, its walls lined with relics entombed in stasis fields. I could hear whispers within the static hum, voices that might have been mean spirits or perhaps the remnants of the damned. The center of the vault was lit by a single lumen beam, and in its glow stood a figure I had only known by rumor and transmission. Lord Varian. He wore black carapace armor marked with the sigil of the Ordo Hereticus. His face half obscured by a respirator mask. His eyes, cold, sharp, merciless, followed me as I stepped forward. His hand rested on the hilt of a power sword, its edge faintly humming with restrained energy. But it wasn't the weapon that held my attention. It was the object behind him, suspended within a lattice of faintly glowing wires, a relic pulsing with unnatural light, its surface inscribed with shifting code. So, Varian said. His voice low, metallic through the respirator. The ghost of terror finally steps from the shadows. I expected you sooner. I go where truth leads, I answered. But down here, it reeks. He laughed, a dry sound that didn't reach his eyes. Truth. There is no truth on Terra, only duty, and you are trespassing on it. I circled him slowly, watching the way his armor caught the dim light. You killed your own kind, purged your order. For what? That relic. His gaze flicked toward the artifact. For a moment, something almost human crossed his expression, not guilt, but fear. You have no idea what it is, he said. This thing, it's not a relic. It's a voice. A remnant of the old night, sealed since the dark age of technology. It promises salvation, but every word is poison. It speaks of rebirth, but only through annihilation. I could hear it then faint, like a distant choir, murmuring through the static. The sound was beautiful in a way that hurt. Each syllable brushed against my thoughts like silk, coaxing them open. What if it's not a lie? I asked before I could stop myself. What if the Imperium's silence is the lie? Varian's blade came free of its sheath, with a sharp hum. That is the heresy I purged my brothers for whispering. You think yourself judge and ghost, but you're just another fool who listens when he should pray. The strike came fast, faster than his armor should have allowed. I deflected, steel ringing against power field, sparks spitting across the floor. The clash of our blades filled the vault, echoing off the walls like thunder. Each blow carried more than strength. It carried belief. His faith against my doubt. His order against my chaos. I could feel the weight of centuries between us, the burden of men who kill in the name of what they think is right. He lunged again. The edge grazing my shoulder, searing flesh through fabric. Pain fled sharp, but clarity came with it. I saw it then, the same madness I once saw in the eyes of Templars, of priests, of kings, convictions sharpened into cruelty. And in his eyes, perhaps he saw the same in me. We broke apart, both breathing hard. The relic pulsed brighter, flooding the chamber with blinding light. The whispers became words, not sound, but thought. Release me. Rebuild the world, Varian shouted. Don't listen. But his voice was lost to the rising hum. The vault trembled. The stasis fields flickered and failed. I felt the choice tear through me, to destroy it, or let it speak. To damn myself before the throne, or risk the soul of mankind. The relic's glow consumed everything. In that moment, the creed and the Imperium, the faith and the lies, all of it felt the same. I reached out my hand and the world vanished in light. The crimson banners of the Inquisition fluttered through the smog-like tongues of bloodied silk. Terror's breath was heavy tonight, a haze of ash, incense, and promethium exhaust hanging low over the skeletal remains of the under. Somewhere in that labyrinth of rust and faith, I moved, a ghost among ghosts. Every step I took was swallowed by the hum of the dying city, every breath a prayer that tasted of iron and dust. I knew the hunt had begun long before the Vox lines crackled with the Inquisitor's voice. His shadow had already fallen across Terra. They called him the Crimson Inquisitor, though no one spoke his name. It was said that to do so was to invite his gaze, a rumor, perhaps, but one the desperate took seriously. His agents were everywhere, skittery patrols with augmetic eyes, servitors stitched into the walls of the hablocks, and psychers whose minds burned like candles, scouring the underhive for my scent. Each of them moved with purpose. Each of them believed they were serving the Emperor's will. I could almost respect that. Almost. The manufactorum ruins around me still hummed faintly with residual power. Ghosts of machinery that once birthed weapons for 1,000 wars. Now the only sound was the slow drip of condensed vapor and the occasional click of cooling metal. I passed through the hall like a whisper, cloak trailing over the debris. The mark of the Imperial Aquila glinting faintly on the wall behind me. It was my signature now, a paradox. A heretic bearing the symbol of the Emperor. Faith as weapon. Rebellion as devotion. It was blasphemy, dressed in purpose, and it terrified them. The Inquisition does not tolerate contradiction. To them, the universe must be clean, obedient, absolute. Yet I had learned long ago that purity is the most fragile illusion of all. Every empire is built on blood it dares not remember. Every creed hides the bones of its martyrs beneath its altars. I had seen the truth behind holy words before, and I would see it again tonight. A low tremor shook the floor beneath me. Then came the sound, distant, rhythmic, mechanical skittery. Their march echoed through the steel corridors, vox grills hissing binary hymns as they advanced. I could smell the promethium from their weapons, sharp and acrid, blending with the oil-slick scent of the decaying floor. The crimson glow of their visors cut through the dark like dying suns. I moved upward, climbing the support beams to the rafters. Below, a unit of 6 entered the chamber, their steps synchronized, their augmetics whirring in perfect rhythm. One stopped beneath the relic of an ancient cogitator, its skull-like form cracked but still functional. Designation: Ghost of Terror. One of them intoned through a vox filter. Probability of presence: 73%. Proceed with caution. They never looked up. They never do. I dropped behind them, blade already drawn, a single strike to the base of the neck, quick and clean. The body collapsed silently, servos twitching. Before the others could turn, I was gone, slipping into the pipes above as they opened fire. The shots scorched the air, turning it to light and noise. I heard one of them chant a litany as he reloaded, a prayer of purification. The irony was almost beautiful. When the echoes died, I found myself crouched beside a cracked Vox unit. Its light flickered weakly, the grill pulsing with static. I reached to adjust the dial and froze. Ezio. Auditore came a voice. Calm, patient, cold. The kind of voice that did not shout because it never needed to. You cannot hide beneath terror's bones forever. You were made to be seen. The sound carried no location. It came from everywhere, the vox lines, the walls, even the hum of the reactors below. His presence filled the air like incense. You mark the Aquila in the blood of the guilty, he continued. Tell me, assassin, do you kill for redemption, or do you still kill for sport? I said nothing. Words were traps. Silence was armor. You will answer, he said, softer now. Not to me, but to him. Every shadow is cast by light, Ezio, even yours. The vox cut to static, then silence. I exhaled, my breath misting in the cold. The air felt thicker now, charged, watching. Above the world, somewhere in the sanctified halls of the Inquisition, I imagined the Crimson Inquisitor standing before his relics and augurs, eyes fixed on my ghostly trail. I had become more than a target to him. I had become a test. I tightened the leather of my gauntlet, the metal plates scraping faintly. Around me, the city shifted, the hum of vengeance, the whisper of hidden prayers. I could feel it now, the tightening of the net. Psychers, scrying through dreams, server skulls tracing blood sent through the vents. Terror itself seemed to breathe in rhythm with the hunt. I moved again. Deeper into the labyrinth, toward the old spires where the light of the Astronomicon barely reached. The crimson shadows followed me, patient, relentless, inevitable. And somewhere in the dark, that voice would wait for me again. Because this was not a chase for my death. It was a summons, a hunt for my soul. The air in the catacombs was thick, not with dust or promethium fumes, but with the raw pulse of minds pressed too close together. Thought itself became noise here, a fevered chorus echoing through the bones of terror. Each step Ezio took down the obsidian stairways was answered by a whisper that wasn't his own. Faces flickered in the half-light. Not living, but memories burnt into the walls by centuries of psychic anguish. He adjusted his cowl, pressing the rebreather tight. Even filtered, the air stank of sanctified oil and burnt incense. Masking something far older, the scent of souls scorched by service to the Est Rono Mic and Dot. He passed through gates marked with the Imperial Aquila, their edges etched in sigils meant to ward against madness. Beyond them lay the Hall of Thoughtfire, where the sanctioned psychers were kept. Their heads were shaven, their skin pale and translucent as parchment. Each was bound to a throne of steel and cables, their bodies trembling as they channeled agony upward, a living network feeding the Emperor's divine flame. The low hum of the conduits was broken by the wet, crackling hiss of neural overburn. One of them screamed softly, not in pain, but in prayer. A plea for meaning amid the torment. Ezio moved among them like a ghost, unseen, yet not unnoticed. Eyes that had long ceased seeing still turned toward him, as if sensing the shape of his will. The psychic field around them throbbed like a heartbeat, pressing against his mind until thoughts came distorted, heavy, half his own. He knew the danger of staying too long. Here, the veil between perception and possession thinned. Every unguarded emotion could be a doorway, every doubt an invitation, and doubt was all he carried lately. At the center of the chamber stood a figure not restrained, but kneeling, surrounded by the faint shimmer of a containment field. A woman, her robes were scorched, the sigils of sanction cracked and fading. She lifted her head as he approached, her gaze filled with golden static. "You wear the mark of the Aquila," she whispered, voice brittle as glass, "and yet, you walk without permission. Why have you come, shadow of the past?" Ezio hesitated, hand resting on the hilt of his hidden blade. "To find the one who calls himself Inquisitor," he answered. "He hunts me through flame and fear." Her lips trembled into something between a smile and a wound. "He hunts everything that does not kneel. His name is a wound upon this world." She leaned forward until the barrier hummed between them. "He seeks not purity, but ascension. He believes the Emperor's silence is a test, that by breaking the veil, he will hear the true voice of the divine. Do you not see? He wishes to become what he serves." The words struck deeper than he expected. For a heartbeat, the chamber seemed to tilt, and the distant hum of the conduits grew deafening. Ascension, a heresy so profound it defied even the Inquisition's hypocrisy. And yet, in that madness, Ezio felt the faint pulse of something dangerously familiar. Purpose twisted into faith. "Why tell me this?" he asked, his voice low, wary. "Because I saw you," she breathed. "In the fires of my mind, you were the blade that could not die. The hand that trembled, but still struck true. You are his mirror, Ezio, and mirrors always crack." Before he could reply, the field around her flared. A psychic surge rippled through the catacombs, tearing through the conduits like a storm. The other psychers convulsed in unison, their screams rising into a single, shattering note. Ezio staggered back as light burst from the woman's eyes, pure, searing, and utterly silent. When it faded, only ash remained. A sound crackled through the Vox grill, embedded in the wall, faint at first, then unmistakable. A voice, smooth and deliberate, carried by the mechanical distortion of authority. "You shouldn't have listened, assassin. Pity, you might have found redemption yet." Ezio's breath slowed. The laughter that followed was neither mocking nor cruel, it was amused. The Inquisitor's voice, echoing through the minds of the dying, as calm as a sermon. The catacombs trembled, as power conduits ruptured overhead, sending arcs of blue lightning across the chamber. Ezio darted for the exit, his cloak whipping behind him as psychic flame licked the walls. When he finally reached the surface, the sky above Terra was burning crimson, the light of the Astronomicon pulsing like a wounded heart. The Inquisitor's words still echoed in his skull, not as threat, but as invitation. He could feel it now. The hunt was no longer about capture. It was about belief. The cathedral loomed like a corpse of faith, vast, hollow, and echoing with the ghosts of prayers that no longer found their way to the Emperor. Ezio stepped through the broken archway, his boots crunching over shattered marble and bullet casings dulled by centuries of ash. Sunlight filtered through the cracks in the stained glass above, its color distorted by the pollution of Terra's skies. Each ray bled red and gold, like divine wounds refusing to heal. The air was still, too still, as though the cathedral itself held its breath. Awaiting judgment, he moved down the central nave, passing pews carved with the sigil of the imperial Aquila, half buried beneath dust. The scent of promethium still clung to the air, faint and cold, like an echo of old fires. At the altar stood the Inquisitor, the crimson cloak flowing around sanctified armor. His presence radiating authority so absolute, it bent the silence around him. His helm was shaped like the skull of a saint. eyes burning behind lenses that glowed faintly with psychic charge. For a moment, neither spoke. The weight of their purpose hung between them like a drawn blade. Then the Inquisitor's vox grill crackled to life. His voice measured and almost tender. "You hide your heresy behind eloquence, assassin. You speak of freedom, yet you bear the mark of the Aquila, as though you still believe it grants you grace." Ezio's reply was quiet, but it carried, "Belief is not owned by the Inquisition. It was never yours to judge." He let his hood fall back, revealing eyes that had seen too much wars fought in shadows, empires broken from within. "You speak of obedience, Inquisitor, but what is faith without choice? What god would demand loyalty from fear?" The Inquisitor's hand brushed the hilt of his power sword. "The only god worth following," he said. And the blade ignited with a roar. Ezio drew his own weapon, the hidden blade sliding free with the whisper of inevitability. The sound filled the cathedral like a promise. Then, motion, sudden, violent, sacred. Their blades met with a crack that reverberated through the hollow nave, sparks flaring like dying stars. The Inquisitor's strength was immense, each strike driven by centuries of sanctioned conviction. Ezio countered with precision, his movements fluid, the discipline of 1,000 silent kills compressed into seconds. Steel clashed against faith, muscle against doctrine. Every parry was a philosophy, every cut a question. The Inquisitor advanced, pressing him toward the altar. "You think the Emperor desires your doubts? He needs warriors, not philosophers. The Imperium stands because we obey." Ezio ducked beneath a blow that split the marble at his feet. "The Imperium endures because some of us still dare to think," he hissed, driving his blade toward the Inquisitor's ribs. The strike glanced off might, but it drew blood all the same, a crimson line that bloomed across the Inquisitor's armor like blasphemy. The Inquisitor stumbled. Just once, his breath rasping through the vox. "Do you know what doubt does, Ezio? It festers. It kills worlds." "Then perhaps some worlds deserve to die," Ezio said. And for the first time, the Inquisitor faltered. Their blades locked, faces inches apart, both trembling, not from exhaustion, but from the unbearable gravity of conviction. And in that moment, the fight shifted. The fury drained from the Inquisitor's eyes, replaced by something colder. Acceptance. He disengaged, stepping back until his heels touched the base of the altar. His voice softened. "You misunderstand, assassin. I do not seek your death." Ezio hesitated, the silence stretching like a wound. The Inquisitor removed his helm. Beneath it, his face was pale, marked by scars that glowed faintly with psychic residue. "There are others," he whispered. "Within the Ordos, they no longer serve the throne as it is. They seek to remake it, to give the Emperor what he cannot take." "What are you saying?" Ezio demanded. "That faith itself will be reforged," the Inquisitor said, "and the first blade to fall will not be drawn by man." His voice broke, a flicker of horror slipping through the armor of belief. "They call it the New Ascension." Before Ezio could press him, the Inquisitor collapsed. The blood spreading beneath him shimmered like molten gold in the light of dawn breaking through the stained glass. As he fell, his gauntlet reached out, smearing the Aquila carved into the altar. Turning its twin-headed eagle into a broken silhouette, Ezio stood alone as the cathedral shuddered, distant bells tolling like the heartbeat of a dying god. He looked up at the fractured sky, and for the first time, the light of the Astronomicon seemed dimmer, as if the galaxy itself had begun to doubt. The first thing Ezio felt was the silence, a silence so profound it seemed to smother the soul. It was not the silence of the underhive, where machines slept and vermin whispered. This was divine, heavy, absolute, somewhere above, beyond kilometers of ash and stone. The golden palace stirred, and across Terra, billions trembled in prayer. To most, the Emperor's will was myth, a distant fire burning unseen behind the veil of eternity. But for one man, a being more legend than flesh, it became command. The custodian's armor caught the light of the Astronomicon as he descended the marble steps of the inner sanctum. His name was forgotten, erased when he took the oath that bound him to the throne. His duty, however, was eternal. He moved with the grace of a living statue, the weight of his auramite plate shifting like the whisper of thunder. Servitors bowed as he passed, their augmetic limbs clicking in rhythmic prayer. Even the air around him felt sanctified, carrying the faint scent of incense and ozone. The residue of psychic charge that clung to the golden palace like divine breath. When the decree came, it was not spoken. It happened. The thought, the will, the divine instruction burned through the noosphere and into the custodian's mind, not as language, but as understanding. One name, one target, one purpose. Ezio, Auditore, a mortal, a shadow, a paradox walking in the light of a god. As the custodian left the upper spires, the world changed. The golden purity of the palace gave way to the soot and rot of the lower hive, where faith was bartered like currency and the emperor's name was carved into rusted metal instead of hearts. He walked through it all, silent and unchallenged, a creature so alien to mortal life that the crowds parted in instinctive awe. Some fell to their knees, whispering blessings. Others hid their eyes, fearing that even a glance might draw judgment. The further he went, the more the perfection around him decayed. Promethium smoke clung to the walls, thick and oily. Servitors hummed half-broken litanies in forgotten dialects, their human eyes clouded by centuries of service. The custodian did not slow. His purpose was crystalline, pure. He followed the trail of the assassin like a thread of heresy winding through the veins of the holy world. Ezio, unaware of the divine shadow closing in, moved through the labyrinthine corridors of the underhive. His cloak was torn, his hands blackened with soot and blood. The fight with the Inquisitor had left more than scars, it had fractured his faith. Each step felt heavier, each thought slower. The words of the dying man echoed in his skull like a prayer turned inside out. They seek to remake the Emperor's dream. He no longer knew if he walked in rebellion or revelation. The underhive around him thrummed with life, the hiss of steam vents, the distant clatter of skittery patrols, the constant hum of machinery, too old to remember its purpose. The air tasted of rust and burnt metal, sharp enough to sting the tongue. Ezio pressed on, his instincts keeping him alive long after reason had fled. Yet beneath it all, something had changed. The soundscape of the hive itself seemed to bend, quieter, reverent. As if every bolt and pipe waited for something sacred to arrive. He froze. The air shifted. It was subtle at first, a change in temperature, a faint hum at the edge of perception. Then came the weight. Not physical, but spiritual. The kind of presence that pressed against the soul rather than the flesh. Even the flickering lumen strips dimmed, cowed by its purity. Ezio's breath hitched. He'd felt fear before, the kind born from assassins, from psychers, from the whispers of the warp. But this was different. This was holy. When the custodian stepped from the shadows, it was not as a man, but as a vision. Gold, immaculate, unyielding. His armor reflected the dim light like a sunrise breaking through filth. Every line of it carved with sacred oaths and the script of 10,000 years. In one hand, he held a guardian spear, a relic that had ended wars before Ezio's ancestors were born. The vox grill of his helm emitted a faint resonant hum, like a choir caught in the moment before song. Ezio did not move. He understood instinctively, this was not an enemy he could kill. This was judgment incarnate. The custodian regarded him for a long moment, his expression hidden, but his intent unmistakable. Ezio Auditore, he said at last, voice like stone breaking under the weight of time. You walk where the throne's light does not reach, yet it watches you still. Ezio's hand hovered near his hidden blade, then fell. Then tell me, he said quietly, is it here to condemn me? Or to understand? The custodian's visor tilted slightly, gold catching the light. That, he said, depends on what you have become. The silence stretched between them, thick with purpose. Then, from somewhere deep within the hive, a distant explosion rippled through the walls. A reminder that faith and fire were never far apart on Terra. Dust rained from the ceiling, settling on gold and cloth alike. In that moment, neither man moved. One was the Emperor's perfect creation. The other, his most unpredictable. The next breath would decide which truth the Imperium could bear to keep. The air inside the chapel was thick with the scent of old incense and burnt wax, clinging to the broken icons that still lined the fractured altar. Dust spiraled lazily through thin shafts of lumen light bleeding in from the cracked stained glass above. I could hear the faint hum of the ruined servo candles, remnants of worship long since forgotten, still trying to burn for a god who no longer listened. And then came the sound that didn't belong, the heavy, deliberate steps of something more than man. Metal against marble. Gold against ruin. He emerged from the haze like a vision carved from both nightmare and divinity, the custodian. His armor shimmered with the faint reflection of lost prayers, each motion precise, impossibly graceful beneath the weight of the auramite plates. His vox grill exhaled softly, almost reverently, and the chapel seemed to bow to him. Even the dust held its breath. I had seen warriors, saints, and monsters in equal measure, but never had I seen a being that seemed to exist above the concept of doubt itself. Ezio of terror, he said. The name carried no warmth, only judgment. His voice reverberated through the broken nave, every syllable as heavy as scripture. The fracture, the title struck harder than any weapon could. To him, I was not a man. I was an aberration, a splinter in the body of faith. His words dripped with devotion and disdain in equal measure, and I could feel the accusation behind them. The fracture. The one who questions, the one who doubts. I do not seek to break the Imperium, I said quietly, only to understand it. The custodian tilted his head slightly, the motion subtle and unsettling, like an angel considering whether to destroy or forgive. Understanding is not obedience, he replied, and obedience is survival. There it was, the dogma that had chained billions, the creed that had hollowed men into machines of worship. I stepped forward, the chapel floor groaning beneath my boots. My hand rested on the hilt of my blade, but my voice was sharper. Tell me, I asked. When obedience becomes blind, who truly serves the man who follows, or the man who questions why? For a moment, the silence stretched between us, taut and trembling. Then, without ceremony or warning, his spear moved. The strike came faster than thought, a streak of divine gold. My blade met it, the clash echoing through the chapel like thunder trapped in a cathedral. Sparks danced, lighting the icons for the first time in centuries. Every strike after that was not a battle of bodies, but of beliefs. His movements were perfect, precise, dictated by centuries of ritual and purpose. Mine were flawed, human, born from desperation and doubt. He fought for the emperor. I fought for the truth. Each parry tore away another layer of silence. Each counterstrike whispered blasphemy. He spoke through his weapon, sermons of duty, faith, and eternal loyalty. I answered through motion questions, defiance, fragments of heresy that refused to die. The chapel became our confessional, our cathedral of violence. I could feel his strength overwhelming mine. The custodian's blows were not fueled by anger, but conviction. My arms trembled. My breaths grew ragged. Still, I pressed forward. Not to win, but to be heard, to make him feel the weight of what he served. At last, his spear tore through my guard and struck the marble beside my knee, forcing me down. I felt the heat of his armor radiate above me, a sun caged in gold. The blade of his weapon hovered at my throat. One thrust, and I would be nothing but silence again. And yet, he hesitated. Just for a heartbeat, the smallest fracture in his perfection, through the amber glow of his visor. I saw his eyes, ancient, sorrowful, uncertain. He looked at me not as prey, but as something he could no longer name. Perhaps a reflection, perhaps a memory. The custodian lowered his weapon slightly, not out of mercy, but confusion. And in that hesitation, I saw it, the first tremor of something far greater than fear. The beginning of doubt. Outside, thunder rolled across the broken sky. The lumen fire flickered once, twice, then steadied, illuminating the cracked aquila above the altar. Neither of us spoke, but the silence between us had changed forever. When consciousness returned, it came not as light, but as pain, a deep pulsing ache that rippled through every muscle like the echo of a distant explosion. The air was heavy with the scent of ash and burnt incense. And somewhere close by, sacred oil dripped rhythmically onto stone. I lay half buried beneath the collapsed arch of the chapel, feeling the cold marble leach the warmth from my blood. My fingers, slick with crimson and gold, brushed against something that wasn't my own, the residue of the custodian's armor. Blood and sanctity mingled together, mortal and divine. It felt wrong. It felt real. Through the haze, I saw him. The custodian stood motionless among the ruin, a statue cast in gold and sorrow. The auramite plates that once gleamed with celestial light were now dulled, flecked with soot and the remnants of battle. His spear was still grounded in the fractured marble like a relic placed upon an altar. The silence between us was unbearable. Not the silence of peace, but of revelation. I pushed myself upright, every breath scraping my lungs like glass. He did not move. Not even when I spoke, "You should have killed me." The words sounded small in the cavernous ruin, almost swallowed by the ghosts of old prayers. His helm turned slightly, the faintest shift of gold. No words, no gestures, no verdict. Only that gaze, hidden behind the dark glass of his visor, fixed upon me, as though weighing the consequence of what hadn't been done. For the first time, I saw hesitation in a creature bred for absolute certainty. His hand trembled faintly at his side, gauntleted fingers flexing as if the armor itself had become too heavy to bear. The custodian, a being fashioned in the Emperor's perfect image, was questioning the purpose that defined his existence. In that moment, I understood that my defiance had done something far greater than I intended. It had introduced a fracture, not in his armor, but in his faith. Outside, dawn bled across Terra's skyline. Through the shattered stained glass, I could see the spires of the Administratum catching fire in the new light, their gold domes glowing like wounds in the fog. The hum of distant manufactorums began to stir, the sound of a planet waking beneath the weight of eternal servitude. He turned away then, slow, deliberate. Each step of his heavy boots echoed like the tolling of a funeral bell. The spear hung loosely at his side. For the briefest instant, I thought he might turn back, finish what he began, restore the order of things. But he didn't. Instead, he spoke, his voice low, fractured, almost human. "You were not meant to live." A pause. But perhaps neither were we. Then he was gone, vanishing into the blinding light that spilled through the chapel doors, leaving me with nothing but the echo of his words and the hum of the golden palace beyond. I remained kneeling among the ruins, watching the sacred oil pool around me, mingling with my blood. The symbolism wasn't lost on me. Even the holiest essence of the Imperium could be tainted, diluted, changed. Maybe that was the truth the custodian feared most, that divinity could bleed. As I rose, my shadow stretched long across the chapel floor, cutting through the twin-headed aquila carved into the stone, a fracture running down the symbol of unity. Fitting, I gathered what little strength remained and stepped into the pale light of dawn. The air outside was thick with industrial smoke, the tang of promethium stinging my throat. The vast silhouette of the golden palace loomed above, a mountain of sanctified machinery and devotion, its towers reaching for a god that never answered. Somewhere deep within those walls, the custodian would kneel again, perhaps in prayer, perhaps in doubt. And his doubt, small as it was, would ripple through eternity. In the manufactorums below, the workers would hear whispers. The priests would deny them, the inquisitors would silence them. But the rumor would persist that one of the Emperor's own had hesitated, that he had spared a heretic. That perfection had cracked. I disappeared into the haze, breath ragged, vision swimming with exhaustion and clarity. I was not triumphant. I was changed, marked not by victory, but by the burden of what I had seen. Behind me, far within the chapel's hollow heart, a voice began to murmur the custodian's voice, a prayer that trembled, not with devotion, but with fear. And the Emperor, radiant and silent upon his throne, gave no answer. The descent feels endless, a spiral carved through the veins of terror itself, where dust has outlived empires and time has forgotten how to count. Each step takes me further from the light, deeper into the machine's womb. The air grows thick with the stench of oil and sanctified decay. Somewhere above, the Astronomicon hums its eternal song, a chorus of souls feeding a flame I can no longer see. Down here, the Emperor's light is only a rumor. Faith fades into static. Hope becomes machinery. The corridors twist like arteries, their walls slick with condensation and old blood. Server skulls drift through the gloom, their optics flickering with fragments of half-remembered hymns. I can taste iron on my tongue, feel it coat my throat like sin. The sound of my boots, soft, deliberate, becomes a confession with every echo. I am not hunted this time. There are no custodians, no assassins, no inquisitorial decrees, only me, and the weight of everything I've ever believed. I pass murals etched into the walls, saints, martyrs, executioners, their faces eroded by time, their halos corroded by neglect. They seem to watch me, hollow-eyed and judgmental, their once divine gazes turned to accusation. Every saint was once a sinner who survived long enough to be rewritten. Every creed, a lie told beautifully. The servitors down here are ancient skeletal forms fused to walls. Their flesh replaced by cables that hum in a low, mournful dirge. They sing without knowing the words, their voices fractured, distorted. It is not worship. It is compulsion. Some are little more than torsos with vox grills embedded in their chests, reciting prayers in binary as dust settles in their open mouths. One reaches for me as I pass, its fingers trembling, servo motors whining with effort. Its touch leaves a smear of machine oil across my forearm, black as ink, warm as blood. I whisper the old creed under my breath, the words I once killed to uphold. Nothing is true, everything is permitted. But the phrase feels hollow now, a relic stripped of meaning. What good are words when even gods fall silent? The tunnel widens into a great hall, a catacomb lined with sarcophagi. Their lids bear the sigils of warriors long forgotten, the first men to kill in the Emperor's name. The bones within are dust now, but the memory of violence lingers like a phantom presence. I can feel it in my chest, the echo of every blade drawn, every oath broken. The tomb breathes slowly, patiently. At the far end of the hall stands a sealed chamber. Its doors carved with the imperial aquila, wings outstretched, cracked down the center. Time has split even the symbol of unity. I run my hand along the seam. Cold metal hums beneath my palm, and something within stirs, faint, deliberate, aware. The chamber responds to my touch. Gold filigree veins pulsed faintly as the door unlocks, releasing a breath of ancient air. The scent of incense and rot fills my lungs. I step inside. The chamber is circular, vast and empty, except for a single device at its heart. A machine built from relics of forgotten ages. Its design is alien, yet achingly familiar, as though drawn from the dreams of the mechanicum itself. Thin strands of light coil around it like serpents, converging upon a small crystalline node, a data fragment the size of a heart. The hum it emits is soft, almost like a whisper. The sound vibrates through the marrow of my bones, threading into thought. I approach slowly, feeling the static crawl along my skin. The light reflects in my eyes, gold and cold. Then, it speaks. Not in words, but in sensation, an overwhelming flood of thought, images, and memory. I see Terra as it once was, oceans blue, and skies unscarred. I see armies kneel before a golden figure whose face I cannot hold in my mind. I see sacrifice, devotion, betrayal, and endless war, all spiraling toward a single truth, and then silence. The machine dims. My reflection stares back from the glass surface of the node. Older, hollow, broken. I realize that the voice I heard wasn't divine. It wasn't the Emperor's will. It was a memory, humanity's first and last echo of what belief once meant. The chamber trembles. Dust falls from the ceiling like ashes from the pyres above. Outside, the servitors begin to wail, their binary hymns rising in pitch, as if they, too, can feel the awakening of something long dormant. I reach for the fragment. My fingertips hover above its surface, the hum growing louder until it drowns out every other sound. I wonder if this is revelation or damnation. Then, The light surges, and in its brilliance I hear it, a voice, faint and sorrowful, speaking from the dark between stars. Ezio, what have you become? The vault awakens like a wounded god. Light erupts from the fragment, not illumination, but exposure. It cuts through the dust and the shadows like judgment, laying bare every mark of age, every fracture in the walls, every secret the Imperium had buried beneath its own faith. The air hums with a vibration that tastes of iron and ozone, and when I breathe, I can feel the static crawling along the back of my throat. The sound is not a voice, not yet, but a pattern, a rhythm that builds until it begins to resemble words. I do not kneel, not at first. My instinct is to fight it, to raise every wall I've built over the years against corruption, blasphemy, and doubt. But this is something older. The fragment pulses like a heartbeat, and in its glow, I see not symbols, but faces. Millions of them, flickering like ghosts, soldiers, laborers, priests, the living and the dead woven together in a lattice of memory. And at its center, a single presence presses against my mind, vast and weary beyond comprehension. It speaks without speaking, its words carved directly into thought. I made them strong, and in strength, they forgot compassion. The phrase hits me like impact trauma. My knees buckle. The light shifts, swelling, and then collapsing into imagery. Terror before the ash. Before the Emperor's own wars had burned it into sanctity. I see oceans of blue, towers of glass, and people laughing beneath suns unfiltered by smog. I see humanity before worship, before chains. And then I hear him again. They have turned faith into a prison, my dream into doctrine, my silence into law. It's not divine wrath, it's grief. A grief so profound it humbles me more than any sermon could. The golden idol that every pilgrim on Terra bows to did not ask for this empire. It mourns it. I want to deny it, to call it false, a corruption seeded by heretics or data demons. But the weight of truth crushes the instinct before it can form. The voice carries the unmistakable tone of the one we were taught never to question. The Emperor's cadence or the echo of it, the distinction doesn't matter. The truth, or even the idea of it, is enough to destroy everything. If I bring this to light, the Inquisition will fracture. Faith will rot from its core. Billions will rise, thinking themselves liberated, only to tear each other apart in the name of interpretation. But if I destroy it, if I bury this secret beneath another 1,000 years of silence, then I become what I swore to fight, another hand of control. Another veil across the eyes of mankind. The fragment dims for a heartbeat, and in that silence, the ghosts return. The ones I've silenced. Their faces hover in the air around me, their eyes glowing faintly through the lights. They don't accuse, they wait. A psyker I executed for whispers of possession. A child whose father I condemned for questioning the ecclesiarchy. An inquisitor, my mentor, whose final breath I stole when I realized his faith outweighed his mercy. They say nothing, but their presence is enough. Their silence is the Emperor's mirror. I finally kneel, not in worship, in exhaustion. My hand hovers above the fragment, its light reflecting off the thin layer of blood and machine oil still staining my skin. My lips move before thought can catch up. Even truth can be a weapon. The words leave me in a whisper, half confession, half curse. The chamber answers with a low, thunderous vibration. Dust rains from the ceiling, and through the mechanical groan of the vault. I hear it, the sound of armored footsteps echoing through the tunnels above. The Inquisition. Their timing, as always, immaculate. For a moment, I almost laugh. All my life, I believed the Emperor tested his servants through hardship. Perhaps this is my test. Perhaps the truth was never meant to be spoken, only carried, like a wound. I rise to my feet, the fragment still pulsing faintly in my palm. It feels alive, warm, waiting for my choice. I look once more at the walls, the murals of saints, the broken Aquila, the ancient servitors still muttering code prayers in their sleep. Everything around me is built on belief. Everything beautiful and terrible in this Imperium comes from one idea: obedience. And in that instant, I understand what the voice meant by freedom. Not chaos. Not rebellion. But the courage to think. The footsteps grow louder. Voices now. Orders shouted through vox grills, distorted by static. The air thickens with the scent of promethium and sanctified oil. I have seconds. Maybe less. The fragment hums again. Brighter now, as if aware of the coming judgment. I close my hand around it, its light bleeding through the cracks of my fingers. Some truths should be buried. But others burn their way through history, no matter how deep you hide them. As the vault doors begin to quake under the Inquisition's seals, I whisper to the darkness, to the ghost that spoke from the machine. If this is your will, forgive me. Then the world erupts in white light. The vault was nothing more than ruin now, its walls trembling under the weight of collapsing centuries. Where once the golden light had burned with blinding sanctity, there remained only smoke, the scent of scorched metal, and the echo of something unfinished. The inquisitorial strike team moved with mechanical precision, their boots cracking against the stone like thunder rolling through the bones of a dead god. Their leader, Inquisitor Varen, stepped forward, his armor etched with the twin-headed Aquila, his eyes hidden behind the red glow of a rebreather visor. He did not speak, he only stared at the relic lying before him, split in two, its inner light extinguished. A servitor scanned the shards, its vox grill crackling with static prayers. No organic presence detected. No life signs. But Varen did not believe it. He could feel something, a residue in the air, a vibration too low for sound, too real for imagination. It was as if a voice had spoken moments ago, and the chamber still remembered the words. Even truth can be a weapon. The phrase hung in his mind like heresy made flesh. Ezio Auditore's name was not to be spoken. Not anymore. And yet here it was, written in data ashes, carved into silence. Varen crouched beside the relic. The fractures shimmered faintly with residual energy, threads of light weaving like veins beneath glass. He reached out, and for the briefest instant, the reflection staring back was not his own. A hooded figure, pale, resolute. The ghost of a man burdened by knowledge no one was meant to bear. Varen pulled his hand back, breaths sharp inside his vox. Purge the site, he ordered. His voice was calm, but his hands trembled. Seal the vault. Nothing leaves this place. Outside, the strike team obeyed in ritual silence. Promethium charges hissed. Aspect scanners flickered. The sound of ignition was both cleansing and cruel, like a requiem sung through static. The vault collapsed inward, dust swallowing the relic, erasing its shape from the world. But the data ghost did not vanish. It spread, unseen, through the networked minds of the Imperium's own machines. Somewhere in the depths of the noosphere, in the quiet hum of the Mechanicus archives, Ezio's whisper endured. Decades passed, centuries, perhaps. The name Ezio Auditore became a rumor spoken only in hidden chapels. Between those who still believed that faith without choice was slavery, some called him the betrayer of truth, others, the keeper of balance. The ecclesiarchy forbade his mention, yet his words appeared in margins of sacred texts, coded verses, fragmented prayers that defied every purge. Freedom is the shadow of obedience. Faith is hollow without doubt. The Inquisition burned libraries to erase him, but the idea had already taken root, not as rebellion, but as memory. There were whispers that even among the Adeptus Custodes, there were those who remembered. Silent guardians who once served the Emperor directly, now burdened with secrets too terrible to speak. They said one among them, a warrior named Alethian, stood vigil before a mirror that reflected not his face but Ezio's flickering through machine code. Alive within the reflection of the throne itself. No proof existed. No one dared to confirm it. But the rumor persisted, spreading like incense smoke through the corridors of the imperial palace. Others claimed that Ezio had never died at all, that the moment he activated the fragment, his essence was absorbed, rewritten into the circuitry of the Imperium. They said he traveled within the Vox canals and data, watching from behind every surveillance lens, every mechanical eye, every service gull drifting through the catacombs of terror. A phantom consciousness. reminding mankind that truth cannot be killed, only buried. On the surface of Terra, nothing changed. The banners of the Imperium still burned in holy wars. The Manufactoria still churned out death in the name of salvation. The Astronomicon still pulsed with the Emperor's dying light. To the countless billions who labored beneath the smog, Ezio Auditore was no more than a myth, a dangerous whisper from another age. Yet deep beneath the crust, in forgotten catacombs where data and dust intertwined, the last creed still echoed. Even truth must sometimes hide in shadow to survive. And in that shadow, between the hum of dormant machines and the sigh of ancient air, Ezio remains, not as saint, nor ghost, nor heretic, but as a reminder that even in a galaxy consumed by gods and tyrants, the will of one man can still defy eternity. A faint flicker crosses a dead monitor. For a moment, the static forms a shape, the outline of a hooded figure. Watching, waiting, listening, the light fades.